All right, finally, part 3 of the Shining mini-series here. So, does anybody have this? Anybody ever pick this thing up? Look at his punchable face. Look at that kid's face. Don't you just want to punch it? Don't you just want to fucking... That should be like the thumbnail here. Is just my fist just punching this kid's fucking face. Anyway, all right. I have threatened a child in every one of these videos. He's old enough now. I'd like to see his face now. I want to see how punchable his face is now. Find me a picture of this Courtney Mead kid now. He's like my age. I want to say he's probably older than me. How old would he be? 97? Oh no, 97. He's probably younger than me. Holy shit. He's a little pup. I'd want to punch his fucking face. All right, so Tony keeps telling Doc to leave. How exactly does Tony think that he's gonna leave? Like, what was his exact plan here? Like, Doc, don't go. He acts like Doc is or Danny is like, 15, 16 years old or 18 or something. He's like, Dad, Mom, I'm not going with you. Okay, I'm jumping in the bus with these guys, and we're gonna freaking take off, and we're gonna go have a party. Like, this is a child. He's fucking tiny. What do they expect? What does Doc expect, or Tony expect from this freaking guy? This little kid, this little pup. All right, then we get a Shawnee Smith cameo here as the waitress that helps Dick when he seems to be having what looks like a heart attack, but is getting blasted from Danny. So it's cool to see Shawnee Smith. And I already talked about in the last one about Jack's temptations with liquor in the hotel, pushing it on him. I guess that happened in here, so I probably should have saved it for this one. But if you want to hear my opinion on that, you can go back to the other video if you didn't watch it. And I already talked about Jack's old shit. I think I talked about most of the stuff I was supposed to talk about here. Oops. So maybe I won't have as much to talk about here. Oh well. And the manager of the hotel, which is like, I don't know what that's supposed to be. He's the overseer, something like that. And he essentially wants Danny to be a part of the hotel because of his powers. Because I guess when they have control over him, they'll have control over his abilities. And maybe they can extend beyond the Overlook Hotel with his powers. And I don't know what. That being said, if Jack had always been the caretaker, shouldn't Danny have always been part of their crew then? Like, shouldn't they know beforehand, since seems to be a forever position? Although Grady was the caretaker just a year ago, but Jack was always the caretaker? See, I'm confused by all of that. That doesn't make any sense to me. Like, Jack should have been the first caretaker and the only caretaker. But the hotel's so old, there'd have to be caretakers before him. But they failed. But Jack has always been there. But he's the one that destroys the place. So I don't know. I'm overthinking it, of course. We got a Stephen King cameo here. And his name for his character in this is the same as the one from the kid in Pet Sematary. Gage Creed. It's the Gage Creed band. So I thought that was kind of cool. And this time, Danny and Wendy are the ones that are there when Jack gets knocked unconscious. And it is Danny and Wendy who carry Jack down into the dry food pantry lock box there that they throw him in. Then we get a cameo from Sam Raimi himself, which was really cool to see, as the guy who rents the Snowcat. Thank you to the guy in the comments that pointed out that it was a Snowcat. I couldn't remember what the name of it was. To Dick Halloran as he goes up to the hotel. And the hotel actually helps Jack in his attack on Wendy by throwing a couch at her. If they could throw a couch at you and knock you over in that way, couldn't they do it when you were on the stairs? Couldn't it pick up a knife and throw it into your body? Like, why isn't the hotel just killing people? Why does he even need Jack to do it? If they can push a fucking couch across? Is that because they're leeching off of Danny's power and they're using his telekinesis, and before that they couldn't? They're obviously being able to manipulate people, get into their psyche, make them commit atrocities, make them kill people, make them kill themselves. But is it because of Danny's power? Why weren't they leeching off of Dick Halloran's power? He's been part of that place forever, and he seems to have some decent amount of power. Why weren't they ever going over him? Is he too strong? Danny's really young and susceptible. He's impressionable. Dick isn't. I don't know. I have way too many questions. As I said, maybe the book would better answer these. And oh man, when he swings that mallet right next to Wendy's face, that's scary shit, man. Imagine having that thing swiped at your face that hard. Whew, that'd be scary for sure. Someone pointed out to me that it is way scarier to be beaten to death with a mallet than to be cut up with an axe. Both sound awful. Neither sounds good. I'm going to go with both are awful. We get the face in the door recreation from Kubrick's Shining, except for in this one, it's not "Here's Johnny," it's "Boo!" How true to the book that is, I can't remember, but "Here's Johnny" obviously has more of a legacy to it for a reason. She slashes at him with a razor from the medicine cabinet. Oh, could you imagine just someone just taking one of those razor blades and just hacking it across your hand? Oh, man. And then she even takes a croquet ball and throws it and hits him directly in the head and like knocks him out, and he's just bleeding all from the face. That was good stuff. Having him covered in blood and actually making his face look more dead really added to the evilness of his look. The hotel just keeps stopping Jack from killing Wendy. Like every time he has her and he's just like right there, they just are like, "Jack, we're running out of time." I don't know what time they were running out of. I don't understand that, because they didn't know the boiler was going to explode until Jack realized it. Which, shouldn't they know that? And as far as the whole boiler thing, you would think that if you don't dump the boiler every single day, that the entire establishment will blow up is a risk great enough for them to put together the money to fix it. I don't feel like, with that being public knowledge, with that being, or I shouldn't say public knowledge, but that being very obvious knowledge there, from Ullman to whoever owns all that stuff, they would look at that as a serious hazard. And to hire one guy who they don't even know for 5 months straight, who, if they don't know, is reliable, who knows nothing, who knows, maybe he fucking, especially with Grady the last year, one guy? What if he was up there and he had a heart attack? What if he was up there and he slipped and fell? The whole place blows up because the guy fell down the stairs accidentally alone, or choked on his food, or whatever. They wouldn't even know for days. And within a day, the whole place would blow up. That seems like a serious fucking problem that they would have fixed a long ass time ago. The dude who takes him down there and shows him that thing, has intimate knowledge about this. He's like, "You couldn't get me next to this thing when it was past 140. He's like, "Oh, they're cheap." Bullshit. No one's that cheap. No one's so fucking cheap that if they didn't dump this thing every day and there was going to be one guy overseeing the thing that they barely knew for 5 straight months, how expensive could that boiler be to replace? The valves and such. It couldn't be that expensive. It couldn't be so expensive that the entire place blowing up if someone doesn't maintenance the thing every single day. Come on. That is asking way too much from your audience. Sorry, but it is. See, you could have the boiler down there and he could have been like, "Look, this is how you set the boiler. If you were to close off this, if you were to do this wrong, the pressure would build up and this thing would explode." That would be fine. So Jack could have came out of his moment and been like, "Get out." And they could have had the big showdown down in the basement. Danny could have ran down there. He could have been by the boiler, and Jack would have been there, and then he would have like knocked one of the things off and like, "Oh my God," like, and he's like, "Go, go, go. I'll take care of this," as he breaks free from his his trance, and then he sets it, and they're like, what are you doing? And then it could have blown up the place. So there's ways around it. You could have still had the boiler be the devastating thing of the movie, of the book, but to have it where it would blow up if it wasn't dumped every day, bullshit. Bull fucking shit. That is too much of a suspension of disbelief, in my opinion. Anyway, moving on. And Wendy actually sees Dick Halloran show up, get clubbed, and Dick doesn't die. Dick is alive after all of this. He's there when Danny graduates fucking high school or college or whatever he was graduating there at the end. So there is no death in this. Nobody dies in this entire book, in this entire, miniseries. Nobody. There's people in the past that had died. I guess Jack technically dies when he blows up, but no one who's like being killed by some psychopath, should I say. So Jack has to sacrifice himself. And that's another thing. I talked about Jack's breakdown and his evilness and all that. I actually think his performance in that is really good. Really solid. I really like it a whole hell of a lot. But yeah, watching Jack actually break free from this, because you know what it reminds me of when this movie is playing out, when Jack is fighting in his inner conflict? It reminds me of Freddy's Revenge. Nightmare on Elm Street 2, Freddy's Revenge, which, if you've watched my channel, I'm a huge fan of. I've talked to death about it. I'm not going to defend it right now, right here. You want my opinion on it, go check out my video on it. I love the fucking movie. And there's some similarities here where Jack is, and this isn't the only movie that does that by any means, but it was just reminding me because Jack is fighting from inside and he's coming out and he's like, I love you. Get out of here. Except for in this version, Jesse doesn't get to live. Jesse, unfortunately, has to go down with the ship. But it is really sad that Jack, because in The Shining, Jack dies the villain. In Kubrick's version, Jack dies the villain. Okay? Now that right there, I feel, is a very strong argument for why Stephen King would hate his adaptation, his version of it. He said he didn't like the way they made Wendy, made her too weak, this and that. But for me, the biggest difference by far is at the end of this, Jack dies the hero. Jack is fighting against an illness that is his alcoholism. Jack is fighting against his short temper. I have a short temper. I have anger issues. I can relate to Jack in this way. And this place feeds on that kind of shit. And this is a man who has succumbed to his weakness many times. Beat up a student, hurt his child, fucking ruined his marriage, all sorts of things. But in the end, his love for his family, his dedication to his family, wins the day, and he breaks himself free of this trance that he's in. And he kills himself to save his family. He kills himself to save families in the future from coming there, from people coming back and other atrocities like he had read about happening again. He learned the history of it, and in doing so, he became almost indoctrinated by them to fight for their cause. But in the end, realized what was right and did what was right to save his family. Jack dies the hero in this one. He dies the villain in the other one. That is a stark contrast. And I like this version better in that way. I like to see Jack, the family man, win and overcome the pressure of everything on him. It gives me hope, that's in that moment. It's just like, yes, you can persevere. You can overcome. And I love that shit. I love it. And of course, this is from Stephen King's own heart because he was fighting alcoholism. And this is a man who's in his 70s now. And he's still with Tabitha. And he has a great relationship from what we can see with Joe and his other Owen and his other kids. He overcame it. He became what he wrote. And that is very inspiring. So, okay. Anyway. But, let's see. Talked about all that. I like that Dick points out to them, like, okay, I know the place is going to blow up real quick, but you're going to die out there if you don't go get some warm clothes. So he gets up from after being pummeled and is like, thinks of them first. Like, I don't want to get out of here. I want to save you. I'm here for you too. So Dick actually coming made a difference. He didn't just loan them a snowcat that they can take. He actually got them out of there, and he thought of their safety first. Like, you need to go get warm clothes on. It's freezing out there. I barely made it here. They didn't do a very good job of really illustrating how bad the conditions were, because Sam Raimi's character is like, dude, you're never going to make it. And then he just leisurely drives up. And it's like, it doesn't look like he went through that much to get there. So they should have put a little more focus on Dick being like, holy shit, you know, the thing barely making it, him getting stuck, him trying to get himself out. It would have added a couple extra minutes, but it would have added to the craziness of what Dick was trying to pull off to get there. And I just didn't feel a sense of urgency and a sense of like him overcoming something to get there. So when they leave, you're just like, oh, they'll be fine. Like, you're just like, oh, they're fine, they're happy, all is well. They should have left there and went through the treacherous conditions he did as well to get out. It would have added to the stress, it would have added to the tension. But they just didn't capitalize on that, and that's that. All right. And then the whole, you know, Jack actually being there at Danny's graduation, and of course we find out that the grown-up version that is Tony when he's is actually the physical form of what Danny would look like when he grew up, and he does look like that. So Danny got to look, and this kid, his glasses are annoying, his haircut is annoying, his face is almost punchable. It's almost punchable, but I feel like with a different haircut and taking those stupid glasses off, his face wouldn't be as punchable. Courtney Mead, you could shave his head, give him tattoos, whatever, his mouth would still be punchable. I won't let that go. I won't let it go. We find out that Wendy's never dated again. I can see why. I don't want to date any guys. I'm over that whole thing. And then at the end of this, which I don't know, having read Dr. Sleep, this just doesn't seem to add up, but they're rebuilding the Overlook at the end of this miniseries. So I think this was before he wrote any bit of Dr. Sleep or had any intention of writing. I don't know. But at the end of this, they're rebuilding the Overlook. And I like that, Jack shows up for his thing and they sit there and they give their goodbyes and he's crying. It actually got me a little emotional, like that his dad showed up to his graduation and got to see him become an adult, essentially. And it's like, I killed myself so that you could have this future. And that exchange of like, even though you were a monster in that moment, and even though you broke my arm, and even though we had this like terrible relationship in our family growing up, I now can look at you as the hero I always wanted to see you as, because you're my father. And it's emotional. In that moment, I was just like, that's fucking sad, man. That's really sad, but uplifting in a way, because in the end, Jack fixed his family. And the thing that needed to be fixed, and it's kind of what he threatened in the beginning, like, I'll kill myself. Like, I'll one way or the other, I'm going to make this right. And it is the other, unfortunately. He has to die for his family to be right. But Dick comes in and he's a rock for them, and you know, you're never going to be able to properly replace your father, but you definitely can have a person who comes in and makes a giant impact, whether they're dating your mom or not. And Dick fills that role. And it's a great family story, and it's definitely told better in this version in that way. It's a better film in Kubrick's version. There's no debating that. Artistically, whatever, what have you, performances, stuff like that is better. But the storytelling, which this is from one of the all-time great storytellers, you're going to have elements here that are stronger suited story-wise. But as I said, you got 2 more hours of runtime, and you've got one of the greatest writers of all time in your corner writing it. So anyway, guys, there you go. My thoughts on The Shining miniseries. What'd you guys think? That was a ride, man. I think all together, this was like an hour and a half freaking long of talking, but a lot to talk about here. So I hope you guys check this out. I'm looking forward to Dr. Sleep. We'll cover that soon, November 7th. I'll be there, and I'll report back. Adios.